So this is our lesson for today. This is the area of triangles. So our objective today is that you will be able to understand to find the area of a triangle, and you can use triangles to create a rectangle. So we just talked about area of parallelograms and rectangles in the previous lesson. So this is going to build on that knowledge. And a lot of times when we're doing this lesson in class, I would have you guys explore and figure out that you could put the two triangles together to create the parallelogram. But because of the way that we're doing this now, I'm just showing you, and you actually could do this at home if you wanted. You need two triangles that are exactly the same size. So you have triangle 1 and triangle 2. These are congruent. That means they are exactly the same. And I can use these two triangles, I can put them together, and I have my parallelogram. Well, we learned yesterday, or in the previous lesson, that a parallelogram, to find the area, is base times height. So if I have two triangles that I'm putting together to create this parallelogram, for my formula for a triangle, I want to take the two triangles, which basically means if I'm finding the area of this whole space, that would mean that I would take the height and multiply it by the base. So that's where my base times height comes from right here. However, if I do that, that's going to give me the area of the entire shape. And remember, I'm only looking for a triangle, not the whole parallelogram. And because these are two congruent triangles, if I divide it in half, that gives me the space for just one triangle. So that's where the formula comes from. These are the different ways that you might see it written. Base times height divided by 2. Base times height times 1/2, which is the exact same thing as dividing it by 2. You may see that written over on this side of the parentheses, half of the base times the height. You might even see it written like this. So you know that I like to show you guys all the ways that you'll see the formulas, so you understand what it's asking you to do. So if we're looking at this example of the parallelogram, where I've combined my two triangles, my base is 9 centimeters, and I would get that from counting this side right here. And the height is 8 centimeters, which I would get from counting up. And remember, it has to be from not a slant, it has to be a perpendicular height. If I multiply those two together, that gives me 72 centimeters squared. That is the area for this entire shape. When I want to just find the triangle, I would divide that by 2, and that gives me 36 centimeters squared. So the area for just one of these triangles, or for each triangle, is 36 centimeters squared, but the area for the whole entire parallelogram is 72 centimeters squared. Okay, I'm going to turn the journal page. So another thing I like to do with students at this point is just review the types of triangles that you'll have. So we have a right triangle. Again, you should have learned this in previous grades, so we don't really teach it in 6th grade. This is something that is just a review. But a right triangle has a right angle in it, a 90-degree angle. An equilateral triangle, even though this picture is not very accurate, but an equilateral triangle has all three sides the same. Yes, you guys know my artwork, it's not the best. And then a scalene triangle means that all three sides are different lengths. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because sometimes when you're finding the area of the triangle, especially if it's scalene, the height is kind of difficult to see. Because remember, we talked about how it has to be perpendicular. So it has to be perpendicular, and it has to have a 90-degree angle, or your height has to be straight, and therefore we had to create our own height line off to the side. It's still accurate for the triangle as far as the height, even though it's not labeled on that triangle. So then we just have a couple of examples without pictures. So if I give you the base of a triangle is 6 units and the height is 5 units, the area is going to be 6 times 5, and then we have to divide that by 2. So 30 divided by 2 is going to give us 15 units squared. Our second example, if our base is 5 units and the height is 6 units, I'm going to multiply those two together and I'm going to divide it in half, which will be 15 units squared. And then on number 3, if my base is 7 units and my height is 4 units, I will multiply those two together to get 28, but then I have to divide it in half, which would give me 14 units squared. So I'm going to give you guys some practice sheets to do to practice finding the area of different triangles. Again, do not use a calculator. You need to do your calculations on your own, and then you can check them with a calculator after.